Hello, everyone. My name's Phil Calvert, and a very warm welcome to the Financial Advisor Mastermind and Challenge. Throughout this week, advisors, leading experts, and consultants to the financial planning profession are sharing amazing insights into just what makes a world-class financial advice business. Today, I'm delighted to be speaking with someone who is an expert on building powerful professional relationships. He's been described by the Financial Times as one of Europe's leading business networking strategists and a master of networking by The Independent. He's the author of 3 books on networking, and he has another one coming out in 2019. Really delighted to welcome Mr. Andy Lopata. How are you, Andy?
I'm very well, Phil. Thanks for inviting me on.
Great pleasure, and so glad that you could join us. So just have a bit of a backstory, could we? Tell us how you got started in networking and how you came to be doing what you do today.
Well, it's through my network, I guess. In May, I'll be celebrating 20 years in networking. 20 years ago, I quit my job. I was in the very glamorous role of running car parks at the time.
Nice.
Said I would never work for anyone else ever again, and I wanted to be a freelance writer. My father had just started a new business with a partner called Business Referral Exchange, which were networking groups.
Oh, yeah.
Originally, when I was running the car parks, he said to me, "Do you want to come and see what we do?" And I said, "It's at 7 o'clock in the morning, isn't it?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Good luck." But when I was looking at becoming a writer, he said, "Well, you're going to need some income while you get some commissions." And he said, "Come and help us out." And that was it. So sort of never heard of networking before he got involved in that. But I just took to it like a duck to water.
Yeah. Interesting. So I guess we've got to ask you what networking actually is, because I think there's probably a lot of misunderstanding. One thing I remember speaking on a ship once, and I was quite high up on a deck, and I was looking down at a cocktail party that was going on before the whole event started, and they called it a networking evening. But what was really interesting, looking down on it from above, I could see a lot of this going on. People holding business cards between two and just doing that. I then went to speak at a conference in Singapore. And somebody taught me very quickly that networking was nothing about this. If anything, it's about this. But networking for a lot of people is just a numbers game, isn't it?
Unfortunately, yes, it's getting better. But the difference is more fundamental than that. So you can understand that networking isn't just about the number of business cards you give out or the business cards you collect or LinkedIn connections you make, and still get it wrong, because you can still think networking is about events and it's not, or think networking is about sites, but it's not. They are tools in the networking process. They help you meet more people. They help you develop better and deeper relationships. But networking is about that network of relationships that you build. It's about having that group of people that you can turn to for help and support, for ideas, for referrals, for introduction, for whatever it might be. It's about you and I meeting probably 15 years ago, probably more. And over those years, we both know that if we need the other, we could pick up the phone, we could drop an email, and we'd respond to each other. That's networking. Formal events in our journey, the two of us, have probably taken up 0.01% of our interactions and time. So networking is about relationships. It's about having ideally a diverse network of people who you would be happy to help and who would be happy to help you, who can talk about you, advocate on your behalf, who can support you, advise you, act as sounding boards, who can refer you, introduce you, and do more. And that's real networking.
Right.
And events allow you to meet those people. They allow you to see them again in a more efficient way.
And we've all been to those events where the extreme end, you've got the people who sneak into the room beforehand and they put all their business cards around on the chairs. That's not quite the way forward. But in many ways, I think lots of people go to networking events, or when they find themselves in a networking situation, they're thinking of themselves more than they're thinking of the other people, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think people do take that to the other extreme as well. So you meet people at networking events who have obviously heard networking experts say, stop selling to people when you meet them at an event. Look, see how you can help other people. So you meet them and you say, hi, I'll say, hi, I'm Andy, good to meet you. And they'll say, Andy, how can I help you? And my response is, you don't know me yet. You don't, maybe I sound cynical. You don't want to help me yet. You're going through the motions. You've been told this is what to do. Get to know me, build a rapport. Let's build a relationship, and then we'll help each other. So it's not going out and hunting for yourself, nor is it going out and only focusing on other people. For me, if I'm to go to an event, I'm looking for people I've got something in common with. I'm looking for people I can strike a rapport with, I can have a good conversation with, and who I want to see again. End of.
Right. So, your strapline is connecting is not enough. I guess that's where you're coming from there, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what that strapline's about. It's, it's driven by this LinkedIn attitude of, and I get it every day, several connection requests. They're not personalized. And when I say, why do you want to connect with me? And I put it politely, I hope. The response I get is, well, I want to build my network. And all you're doing is you're exchanging clicks. LinkedIn will throw me up as someone you might want to connect to. So you click connect, I click accept, and somehow you think that's successful networking. You need conversation. You need to get to know each other. The important thing is that when someone else in your network is sat in front of the right person for you, 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, you don't know that. If you're a financial advisor, right now, while while people are watching this webinar, how many people in their network are out there talking to people who need to look at their finances, people who are selling businesses, people who are, whose kids are just about to leave or have just had kids. Lots of people who are in that ideal position where they'll be open to a conversation with a financial advisor. And yet they're not thinking of you.
I guess there's two aspects to this. There's the physical networking, and there's also having a referral strategy, which I think are kind of linked. But with the best will in the world, I know that a lot of people find a bit like public speaking. They find networking a bit uncomfortable and not quite sure what to do. What tips would you give them?
I think a lot of it goes back to the core message that I've been talking about. If you're talking about formal networking events, if you go to those events seeking to sell, you're going to find it uncomfortable because people don't go to events to be sold to,
right?
Unless they're specific meet the buyer events. So immediately you've got a disconnect. If you go and exchange elevator pitches, what do you do? Oh, I'm a financial advisor. What do you do? Oh, I do this. It's unnatural because that's not our natural conversation.
No.
If you go looking to find people that you like and you have a rapport with and you relax and you're more yourself, then that's going to take a lot of the pressure off. There are more tips than that, but if you want one golden tip that's going to really make it easier, make it smoother, is understand networking is not events. Understand them as an opportunity to go and meet people you like, you find interesting, and you want to see more of.
Interesting.
So that changes the mindset.
So the what do you do question, that's a classic one. Is there a better alternative to that?
Yeah. So I always say, what do you do is the networking equivalent of do you come here often?
Right.
Because it's an icebreaker, it's not meant, it's just a way to get into conversation. Ironically, in my view, the best question or the better alternative is, do you come here often?
Okay.
Not in those words, but you share the one thing you share in common, other than the weather outside and the traffic getting there, which are the things we Brits are brilliant at talking about. The other thing you share in common is the event at which you're having the conversation. So if you have a conversation along the lines of, are you a member of this organization? Have you been to this conference before? What did you think of the speaker? You've got common ground somewhere, because whatever the answer, there's a place to go. So if I say to someone, have you been to this event before? And they say, no, it's my first time. Well, what brought you here? If they say, yeah, I come every year, well, what value do you get? What do you look for from it? That's really interesting. Is it a core part of your diary every year? So you've got somewhere to go deeper in the conversation. Now, if you're at an event and someone says, what do you do? And you say, I'm a wealth advisor, I'm a financial advisor, I'm a wealth manager. If you're not at a financial services event, the chances are that people have nowhere to go with the conversation. Their eyes are blank, they turn grey, and they look over your shoulder. So what do? Leaves nowhere for the conversation to go. I talk about conversational cul-de-sacs, whereas you come here often in a more intelligent phrase than what I say, takes the conversation somewhere.
I've seen you talk about, was it eye to badge contact?
Yeah. So, not getting to know the person, but worrying about what they do and how relevant they are to you. My favourite story about this is I was at a conference at Wembley Stadium called SoccerX. It's the big global conference for the football industry. And a client who were in the currencies world asked me to go along and work with their team, just be there as the coach on the day, if you like, to help them network. And they said, you can do your own networking while you're there as well. So I got chatting to a German guy. And now this event it takes a lot of the things I talk to extremes. The attendees are either people from the football industry. So all the top clubs around the world are there, Manchester United, Bayern Munich, Barcelona, Real Madrid, Charlton Athletic, all the best teams in the world are there.
Right.
And all the suppliers to the football industry are there. So the suppliers want to meet the football clubs. And they walk around, and everyone's wearing laminated name badges around their neck. And the suppliers walk around and they make eye to badge contacts. They don't look at your face, they look at your name badge, and they shake their head because you're not relevant. So I got chatting to this German guy. And when I say I got chatting, it was probably about 45 seconds. Because within 45 seconds, he worked out I wasn't the commercial director of a Premier League football club.
Right.
I found out that's who he wanted to talk to.
Yeah.
Within 45 seconds, he said, would you excuse me? There's someone over there I need to talk to. He walked 5 yards and got on his phone while I was still standing there inside. Yeah. If he had spent a bit more time getting to know me, he might have found out that a good friend of mine, someone I'd known for about 20 years, was at that event. And guess what Steve did for a living at that time?
Yeah.
He was the director of a Premier League football club. So when I talk about eye to badge contact, it means we're classifying people by what they do and how that role is relevant to us, rather than finding out about the person and understanding that they may never buy from us. They may never be the right person for us, but they may be very influential on someone who is.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Now, I've seen you stand up in front of an audience before now, and the first thing you told them is that they are lazy, complacent, and arrogant, which is a great public speaking technique. Congratulations on that. But tell us what that means in the context of what you do.
So that comes from a talk called How Not to Get Referrals. And what I'm sharing is why most businesses don't get enough referrals. And I do a lot of work, as you know, with the financial services industry, including financial advisors. So the sort of behavior I'm talking about to all audiences, I've seen a lot of within this industry. And I'm very quick when I say that with audiences to reassure them that I'm not being personal. And I'm generalizing about what I see about all businesses when it comes to referral strategies. What's amazing is that if you ask most businesses, and particularly in this industry, where do your best leads come from? Word of mouth, recommendation, referral will top the list almost every time.
Yeah.
And yet most companies will invest time and effort in almost every other route to market, but leave word of mouth and referrals to chance. So, I know financial advice firms that hire cold calling teams, quite a few. I know ones that will pay for advertising, that will employ a PR consultant, employ a marketing consultant, have a business development lead in the office, someone whose pure role is BD. All of those things are perfectly fine. I'm not knocking them. But what amazes me is the resource, the time, the money that's invested in all of those routes to market, and the lack of investment in the one that we say is the best, which is referral recommendation. So when I talk about being lazy, complacent, and arrogant, that's your starting point. If someone is referred to you by a trusted source, they're more likely to take your call, they're more likely to see you, they're more likely to listen to you, they're more likely to sign up with you, they're more likely to refer you on, and they're more likely to stay with you. So why on earth wouldn't you invest more resource rather than less into that form of business generation?
That's really interesting. But I think that you like to see things going a bit further, because if we talk to most financial advisors and ask them that question, what's your number one source of business? They won't say Twitter. They won't say Facebook ads or anything like that. They'll say referrals from existing clients. And that's great. But I suspect you would like to see them developing that into some kind of strategy, a formal business referral strategy.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the whole point, is that we'll have other marketing strategies and leave referrals to chance. You know, I teach this stuff. I practice it the whole time. My business is built on referrals. Interestingly, I'm not a process person. Whenever I get back to the process and I apply it, my referral acquisition goes up. So the more focused you are, the more referrals you get. And you nailed one of the biggest problems in something you said. Most advisors would say referrals from clients. That's a classic example of complacency, because we assume that if we do a good job, people will refer us. If we do a good job, people will pay us if we're lucky. We don't have any right to expect referrals. We can earn the right to ask for referrals, but there's no obligation on our clients to refer us. And actually, if you think about it, your clients don't necessarily have a vested interest in referring you, because their perception will be the busier you get, the less time you have to focus on their needs. So as a simple example, how many advisors ask suppliers to refer them? You know, most advisors will wear blinkers, and the only people they'll ask for referrals on anything approaching a strategic basis would be either clients, and I'm not saying don't ask clients, I'm saying don't rely on clients and don't only ask clients, but will be clients or intermediaries. So I talk about the holy quadruplicate, which is advisors, accountants, bankers, and lawyers. I didn't say lawyers, did I? And the interesting thing here, and this goes to the heart of the lack of a referral strategy, if I ask any of those four, where do you get most of your referrals from? They will say level 3, specialities notwithstanding. And yet when I talk to them individually, they will all complain about the others. They will all say, well, I give a load of referrals, but I don't get any back, which makes you wonder where these referrals are actually going, because no one ever says it the other way around. And I think what that comes down to is a failure to be strategic, a failure to track the relationship, to nurture the relationship. An advisor will go up to a lawyer or an accountant. They'll say, let's have lunch and have a chat about how we can help each other. They'll agree over lunch to refer each other. They'll go back to their respective offices and not talk again. And 3 or 6 months later, they're sitting there thinking that was a waste of time. You know, they've given me nothing. So the referrals that are coming in are not being valued because the communication is so poor. And the quality isn't up there because the communication is so poor. And neither party really knows what's going on because the communication is so poor. And it's remedied so easily. I was working with a firm of financial advisors in the Northeast, and we were talking about this. And the solution we came up with, which I now share with all my clients as an idea, is for each intermediary that you want to work with, set up a regular meeting. It can be every 6 weeks for half an hour with a very simple 4-point agenda. How are you getting on with the referrals we gave you last month? Here's how we're getting on with the referrals you gave us last month. What referrals are you looking for this month? Here are the referrals we're looking for this month. So you've got regular, frequent asking for referrals and frequent tracking of progress and accountability.
That's great.
And then you go for a beer or a meal or something afterwards, so the relationship gets nurtured, so it's not purely transactional. But that's a small step, half an hour every 6 weeks, and think of the flow of business you could get. But you know how many advisors I know that do that, even after I've said it? It's minimal, because everyone wants low-hanging fruit. They want easy, and that's where that intro comes from.
That's really interesting. So that sounds like to me a great part of an overall strategy. So if an advisor was thinking about putting together a strategy, of which that may be a part, what else would you like to see in a formalized strategy?
In a formal strategy, what I'm looking for is Number one, what referrals do you want? Do you have clarity on the type of referral you're asking for? Which may sound like a stupid basic question, but it's frightening how many advisors don't know the answer. We don't think about it. How often do people say to you, how can I help you? And you go, I don't know, because we haven't done our homework. And the number one job of any advisor when they want referrals is to make it as easy as possible for their champion to refer them. And champion is what I call someone who refers you on a regular basis, particularly. And to do that, you have to know what your referral mix is, what the different types of introduction you're looking for in as specific context as possible. If you say anyone who needs my help, well, anyone gets you no one. You have to drill it down. It's the difference between painting a crowd scene or painting a portrait. Your champion needs to see the picture of someone they know in their mind's eye. Then they'll feel compelled to take action. So part one is have a referral mix, know who you want to meet. So by referral mix, I mean the different types of referral you would be looking for. So it might be, some might be corporate, some might be individual. There might be, I used the examples earlier, someone selling their business, someone who's just had a baby for the first time, someone whose kids have just gone off to university or are close to it. What you can build different scenarios, because what that means is that when someone says, how can I help you? Or you identify you want to ask for the referral, you know who they know. You think of their referral mix and you look for the match. So that's number one. Then you need to understand where those referrals are going to come from. Mm-hmm. And going beyond just the client and intermediary pool where most people are fishing. And I like to challenge people on this, to really take the blinkers off and think more widely, understand the power of 6 degrees of separation, understand who's having conversations. So it might be people you know in your personal life, but who have the right professional connections. And I would be looking initially to find 5 champions who could refer on a regular basis, then build it to 10 to 15 to 20. Because if you have 5, 10, 15 people who could bring you a flow of referrals, and you focus your efforts on one-to-one conversations with them, you'll get a lot more and higher quality referrals than you would by emailing 1,000 people.
Right.
So the first thing is understanding what referrals you want. The second is understanding where they're coming from. And the third is understanding why people would refer you, what will motivate them. So it's understanding the individuals, it's getting over your own fears that hold you back from asking, fears of looking vulnerable or being a burden to other people, and actually asking people in a way that makes it easy for them to refer, giving them just the right amount of information so that they're capable of having the conversation when you're not in the room, and actually recognizing the opportunity for that conversation in the first place.
Yeah.
So that's the basics. And then I have 2 documents that I give to my clients. One is called the referral book, which starts with those 5 people, and it says, score them out of 10 for 3 areas: willingness to refer, understanding of what you do, and opportunity to refer. Now, your opportunity needs to be high, otherwise they're not going to give you a flow of referral. They shouldn't be on your referral book. The other 2 can be low, but you don't ask for the referral until you've got the numbers up. So if I've got someone on there who's 10 out of 10 for opportunity, but 3 out of 10 for willingness, I'm going to build the relationship. So the next thing on the referral book is, what's my next step? So you go on that journey. And then the second half of the referral book is tracking the activity. What have they promised? What have you asked for? What's come in? What have you done about it? What have you done to say thank you or give feedback? All these things that are so basic, but we let drop. So that's the first spreadsheet I use. The other one is called the touch point spreadsheet. This is for people who are not necessarily people you can ask directly for referrals. You don't know who they're talking to, or they're not going to be on a flow, but you want to be front of mind. So I might say, I want to be front of mind with Phil Calvert. So what I'm going to do, in the next month, I'm going to score 15 points. So I've gamified staying in touch. And I might score 2 points for liking something you post on social media. I might score 5 points for picking up the phone and having a conversation with you, 10 points for giving you a referral. And then the next month I might say, well, I'll score 10 this month, and then 3 the next, because otherwise I'll look like a stalker. So, I manage, I keep my focus on staying in touch with key people. So
What a lot of that's coming through here is that it seems to me you're saying that with a strategy, yes, people are going to get referrals anyway, as they are right now. But what you're saying is the quality of the referrals is going to go up a few notches.
Yeah, absolutely. And I get people who say, well, I get a lot of referrals anyway, I don't know how I do it. I say, great, wouldn't you like to get more? If you're already getting a flow of referrals, if you can improve that by 10%, either in quality or quantity or a combination of both, what's that impact that 10% going to have on your bottom line?
Yeah.
And not just your bottom line, actually, on your lifestyle. If you can convert yourself to a business where from a portfolio of 100 to having a portfolio of 20 clients because they're bigger investments, bigger schemes, then surely that's going to impact the way you live your life as well as run your business.
Yeah.
So I always think there's room for improvement. And as I say, this stuff is second skin to me, second nature. I do it all the time. Yet when I go into the process, I get more.
That's really, really interesting. Let's talk a little bit about social media.
Mm-hmm.
You and I probably first met at some on an Academy event some years ago. And back then it wasn't called social media, it was called social networking.
Yeah.
And I still believe that many, many business people think that social media is a kind of shortcut for all of this.
Yeah.
And in many ways, it might have got in the way of us doing better business and more better business.
Yeah, yes. I think the same rules that I talked about for networking events apply for social networks and social media. If you turn up and just say, look at me, this is who I am, then everyone will go to the other part of the room and avoid you. If you engage with people, show an interest, find people you've got a rapport with, help and support them, then people will come to you. So if you look at my LinkedIn feed, if you look at my Instagram feed, even Facebook, you'll see that I work hard to let my personality shine through. Mm-hmm. Now it's easier for me because I run my own business. I don't have compliance concerns, regulatory concerns, anything like that. I recognize that. But we've just finished a program with one of the big financial advice networks looking specifically at their approach to LinkedIn and working within the confines of compliance and the network's requirements and so on. But we still all agreed that more personality could come through. You can still show personality and stay compliant. So, if I was going through with a client yesterday, some of my recent LinkedIn updates, and it was really interesting. The ones that got engagement, and I don't have a huge network because I don't have an open connection policy. I think you may do, and I know some do.
I game the system. It's sorry to interrupt. LinkedIn is also a game, and if you play the game, it works. But that's my strategy for a particular reason, and it doesn't have to be other people's strategies. But sorry, I interrupted you. Yeah.
Well, the program we ran for this network was 2 of us. Andy Preston.
Yeah.
And Andy has a very open strategy on LinkedIn. I have a semi-open, semi-closed strategy, and we delivered the Andy guide to LinkedIn, where we shared both approaches so that the participants could take away what was right for them. But yesterday I was going through with a client some of my most recent updates, and as I say, I don't have a huge network, but the views on videos and on posts were in the thousands. They were reasonable, but what was interesting is that the cold, dry, professional updates that said what I do were low numbers.
Yeah.
The higher numbers were where I posted about a check presentation for a charity event that I run, where I posted about a greeting that I got at Frankfurt Airport in January, where a colleague, a fellow professional speaker, met me with this giant sign saying networking genius at the gate. That had huge resonance with people, and it's about engaging people, making them laugh, making them sit up and pay attention. And then every now and then I will drop something in that says what I do, but I'm never selling. I mean, okay, when my new book comes out, I will probably say, hey, buy my book. but actually I should be in a great place already by then. So I posted recently, I did a similar interview to this, and I realized that I got asked about what the biggest takeaways for my book were, and I haven't finished writing it yet.
Right.
So I think at the time I was about 2 weeks away from finishing writing it. And the last chapter is the rules of asking. It will be the title of the last chapter. I haven't written it yet at the time. So I started by covering up, if you like, trying to answer the question. And halfway through I said, but actually I haven't written that yet. And I'm learning by writing this book. So writing that chapter for me is where I corral all my thoughts and bring it together. And at the end of the interview, after it finished, Andrew, the interviewer, said to me, that was when you got vulnerable. Now that was ironic, because that's really what the book is about, being authentic and vulnerable and sharing. And when I went into that mode, it became more powerful as an interview. So I posted that on LinkedIn and Facebook, and it got positive engagement. So by doing that, I'm engaging people in my book, and I'm building interest in my book, but I'm doing it in a way that's not selling, that's not putting myself on a pedestal, that's authentic. But one of the comments was, I can't wait to read this book.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that it's about engaging with people as they would want to be engaged with, making them laugh, making them think, making them sit up and take notice, rather than just bashing out sales messages the whole time.
Yeah. I've always said that humor, emotion, empathy, anything also where you can find something in common with the other person. You know, when you go to a dinner party or something like that, and maybe you've never met anybody before, and sure, you may be the best networker around, but there's that magic moment when you strike a chord with someone where they say something that you know you've got something in common, and then it's like turning the burner up. It just away it goes. I was talking to somebody this morning who has started posting quite a lot of videos of him at the gym doing bodybuilding, and he's kind of putting down his journey. He's been talking about his goals, and he's getting inquiries out of the blue from complete strangers who say, I'd like to hire you for what you actually do, but I'm really interested in your story as well. So the humanness is very, very important.
Not a well-known bodybuilder, is he, by any chance? Not bodybuilder, a well-known memory person.
He could be that person, yes.
He could be that person, yeah. I've seen the post. I normally post tongue-in-cheek comments on that about red and ginger not being a good look.
Yeah.
I mentioned I was mentoring a client yesterday, and he was saying to me that since his last session with me, he'd gone to an event. He's in the legal industry, and he'd gone to a solicitor's event, and he said normally there was no one he knew there really. He would have turned around and walked out, because that was one of the reasons he's working with me. He said, but he made himself talk to some people, and he started talking to someone, and very soon he found out that person was from Iraq and his wife is from Iraq.
Right.
But immediately he was comfortable. They had something to talk about. And this goes back to just finding out, stop looking at the name badge. Find out about the person behind the name badge. Find out what you've got in common. Now he's followed up with that person. They're in touch. And at some point, it might be in the next year, it might be in the next 10 years, you don't know, that person may be exactly in the position to refer him or support him or help him another way. And I think we're very short-sighted when we network. People are used, particularly people in sales, are used to going back to the office and being asked, how many cards did you collect? What have you got from that event? Now, it's what have you got from the network that you've built over, in our case, over 20 years. And I'm getting referrals, I'm getting support from people I met on Academy 15, 20 years ago. And I've built the relationship over a period of time. Unless you are in your 60s, 70s now, you're looking at 10, 20, 30, 40 years plus in business. And so the conversations you can have now are to go into the bank to help with those. In this industry, and because I work a lot in the pensions industry more widely, the analogy is a pension scheme. The time you invest in networking is investing in your pension scheme, and you don't cash in your pension scheme as soon as you paid in your monthly premium.
Yeah. That's a great analogy. Just doing this summit with financial advisors, I needed to find 30, 35 guests, and it was relatively easy because I had met so many of the people in the past, and the ones that I wanted that I didn't know, I was able to get a referral through them. So just going to wrap this up. So if a financial advisor was watching this now, or if there was a young financial advisor just getting started, who believed that perhaps networking and referrals was the way forward, what 3 quick tips would you give them that they ought to be thinking about before we give them your challenge that I'm going to ask you for in a minute?
I think the 3 big tips are, and it goes back to the advice I gave earlier in terms of having a strategy. 3 big tips are to have absolute clarity on what ideal referrals look like, so that when someone asks you, how can I help you? Or when you're ready to ask for that help, you can communicate it in clear terms that they can understand and picture someone in their minds. I think that'll be the first. The second is to, I think, be open to building a network that may not be to prescription. You know, have a diverse network, people with different backgrounds, different thoughts, because that's going to give you greater reach and more diverse insights. So build a network with your eye on the long term, not worrying about what you can get today from those people. So even, you know, I got introduced to someone yesterday. We had an exchange of messages today, and he said, how can I help you? I said, I don't know yet. You know, I don't know you. Let's meet. So I think have a bit more long-term thinking about the way you build a network, and related to that, stay in touch with people. I'm sure many of the people watching this will have experienced the feeling they get when someone they haven't seen for 3 or 4 years suddenly reaches out. You know, you get that connection request on LinkedIn followed by a message saying, by the way, just been made redundant, I'm looking for a new job. Don't be that person. Stay in touch with people so that when you need their help, if you need their help, it feels natural to ask, and seek to help that network without expectation of return. You know, if you can help someone and it doesn't, you know, there's no major investment of time or effort for you in doing so, then just do it.
So give before you get.
Yeah, seek to support.
Okay, so if people wanted to read any books about networking, which books would you suggest, Andy?
Oh, from my own canon, or
Why
from
not?
So I've written 3 books. The 4th one, as you've mentioned, is on the way. If I was to recommend any one of them, if you're looking at referral strategy, it's my 3rd book, which is called Recommended: How to Sell Through Networking and Referrals, which is on the Financial Times imprint. And that's, you know, all of my books are available on Amazon and all good bookshops, and some rubbish ones as well.
Okay.
If it's networking events you want more support with, then And Death Came Third, which is the definitive guide to networking and speaking in public. So the 2nd edition of that is out on Panoma Press. So yes, so those would be the 2 main ones that I would recommend from my own canon, and of course my new book when it comes out in September, for a completely different perspective on networking.
Sounds interesting. So we are asking each of our interviewees if they could set our viewers a challenge, something maybe substantial or small, or a change of thinking, or something they could do over the next week. What would be your challenge, Andy?
Okay, well, if it's over the next week, let's make it a 2-part challenge. Part 1 is to ask 2 people for specific referrals where you wouldn't have asked before. In doing so, remember those 3 scores: trust, understanding, opportunity, or willingness to refer, understanding, opportunity. So it's not asking someone who can't refer you. It's not asking someone who doesn't want to refer you. Think about who in your network is in a position to refer you, would be happy to do so, and would know what to say, and then think, what would I need to say to them to make it easy for them to refer me? And my tip on that is be as specific as possible. So ask for 2 specific referrals from 2 individuals, and ask for them in person. Whether it's on the phone or face-to-face is up to you, but an email is a cop-out. The second part of it is give 2 referrals that you wouldn't have given otherwise. So if someone says to you, can you recommend someone, that doesn't count, because you would have responded to that otherwise. It needs to be at your initiation. So think about your network, look at who you've met in the last couple of weeks, who you're meeting in the next week. Who would they benefit from meeting, or who would they benefit by meeting them or by being introduced to them? Ask for the permission of both parties before you make the connection as well.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely key. But I can't set a challenge asking people to ask for referrals if I don't balance it with giving referrals.
And people will feel great about giving referrals, won't they?
Yeah, and this, I touched on it earlier when I talked about what holds us back from asking. And, very often we don't ask because we don't want to be a burden to others. And what we forget is actually we get great pleasure from helping other people. So when you don't ask for referrals, you're denying people pleasure. As long as it's people who know you. I'm not suggesting walk out and see a stranger and say, can I give you some pleasure? Will you help me?
Yeah.
It's people from within your network. But so that's the willingness to refer score. What's their willingness to refer? If it's 8, 9, 10 out of 10, why wouldn't you ask them?
Yeah, that's great. I guess Brits particularly quite often feel a bit uncomfortable asking for referrals. I guess that's just something we've got to get over, really.
Yeah, and it's not just Brits. I think it is worldwide. I've spoken all over the world, and it is a common challenge. Something I explore in the new book. We like to look good, and actually Brits are probably in the middle of the range in terms of worrying about how we're perceived. There are countries and there are cultures where, particularly for men, asking for anything is anathema because it makes us look vulnerable. But yes, it's how you present it. If I turn around to you and say, oh, my business is struggling and I've just let 6 clients down and they've ditched me and I'm going to go bust in a week if I don't get more business, will you refer me? I look weak.
Yeah.
But if I turn around and say, I've just had some major successes, the business is booming, I feel great about what I'm doing, I want to help more people. Now, I know you mentioned this colleague of yours who has this challenge and I can help with that. Would it help you if I had a chat with them? That doesn't sound weak at all.
Fantastic. Andy, thank you so much for your time today. Very much appreciated. I know you're pretty busy. For our viewers today, when this video is finished, you'll have the opportunity to join a private forum where you can look over all of the challenges, maybe take up Andy's. You can ask questions, you can share how you're getting on, and you can even find an accountability partner as well. So in the meantime, once again, thank you so much to Andy Lopata. Great to have you on board today. And to everybody else watching, my name is Phil Calvert, and thank you very much. See you on the next video.